In 2007, Rob Zombie was given the impossible task on remaking one of the most important horror films ever made. The result was a movie that made over $80 million at the box office, but divided Halloween fans more than any other film in the entire franchise. Some people loved it, others absolutely hated it. So what exactly went wrong? In July of 2002, the Halloween franchise limped to the finish line with Halloween Resurrection. Just 4 years earlier, Halloween H2O had delivered what many fans felt like was the perfect ending to the series. Laurie Strode finally confronting Michael Myers and seemingly ending his reign of terror once and for all. Halloween Resurrection completely retconned that ending, bringing Michael back in one of the most widely criticized sequels in the entire series. And just like that, the franchise faded into silence. For the next 5 years, Halloween disappeared. Until August of 2007. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Mike's Movie Room, and in today's video we are diving deep into Rob Zombie's Halloween. A movie that's fascinating, controversial, and easily one of the most divisive films in the entire franchise. Because Rob Zombie didn't just remake Halloween, he tried to explain Michael Myers. So let's dive into it. After the disaster that was Halloween Resurrection, the franchise went quiet for several years. But in 2005, tragedy struck behind the scenes when longtime Halloween producer Mustafa Akkad was killed in a terrorist bombing in Jordan while he was attending a wedding. Development on the series stalled for a while after that. By early 2006, his son, Malik Akkad, stepped in to help oversee the franchise, and Dimension Films decided it was time to revive Halloween. But instead of making Halloween 9, the studio wanted to reboot the series entirely. Dimension executive Bob Weinstein personally reached out to musician-turned-director Rob Zombie to see if he'd be interested in writing and directing a new version of Halloween. On June 4th, 2006, it was officially announced that Zombie would be rebooting the franchise. Out of respect for the original film, Zombie actually called John Carpenter before the announcement went public to let him know that they were remaking Halloween. And Carpenter's response was simple: make it your own movie. Interestingly enough, Carpenter later admitted he didn't have much interest in watching the remake and largely distanced himself from it, something that added even more curiosity around the project. At the time, Zombie had already built a reputation in the horror world with House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects. His films had a gritty, violent style that Dimensions believed could modernize the Halloween franchise for the mid-2000s, a time when darker horror remakes like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills Have Eyes were dominating the genre. But originally, Rob Zombie didn't plan on simply remaking the 1978 film. His idea was actually to tell the story in two parts. The first movie would act as a full prequel, focusing almost entirely on Michael Myers' childhood, exploring his family life, his time at Smith's Grove, and the events that shaped him into the killer we know. Then, in a follow-up film, Zombie would tackle a remake of the original Halloween. But the studio had other plans. Dimension Films wanted a recognizable remake immediately, something audiences would instantly connect to the original movie. So Zombie was pushed to combine both ideas into a single film. Instead of two separate movies, a prequel and then a remake, the 2007 Halloween ended up mashing those concepts together. The first half explores Michael's childhood and origin, while the second half retells the events of the original film in Haddonfield. And that's where the problems really begin. Now, before we get into everything that went wrong with Rob Zombie's Halloween, I do want to give the movie credit where credit is due, because there are definitely things it does well. Most of the cast is actually pretty decent. Scout Taylor Compton takes on the role of Laurie Strode, bringing a much more modern and energetic version of the character. Malcolm McDowell plays Dr. Loomis, stepping into the iconic role originally made famous by Donald Pleasance, and we'll get to his character more in a few minutes. Horror fans will probably recognize Brad Dourif as Sheriff Brackett, who is also famously the voice of Chucky from the Child's Play franchise. And then there's Danielle Harris playing Annie Brackett. Harris is actually a longtime part of the Halloween franchise, having previously played Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 4 and Halloween 5, making her return here a cool full-circle moment for fans. And no matter what you think about the movie itself, Tyler Mane deserves a lot of credit as the adult Michael Myers. His massive physical presence makes this version of Michael feel absolutely intimidating and unstoppable. And the film also has a very gritty atmosphere. Zombie style is all over this movie, giving it a raw, almost dirty feeling that makes it stand out from the rest of the franchise. The kills are brutal, and whether you like Zombie's interpretation or not, the movie definitely delivers when it comes to violence. And some of the filmmaking choices are actually pretty good, especially the way the camera work changes throughout different parts of the movie. In the early prequel portion, the camera is mostly handheld, giving these scenes a shaky, chaotic feeling that reflects the unstable environment Michael is growing up in. When the story moves to Smith's Grove, the visual style changes. The camera becomes much steadier, using more controlled shots and still frames that give the institution scenes a colder, more clinical atmosphere. Then, later in the third act, when Michael returns to Haddonfield, the film shifts back to that handheld style again, bringing back that sense of chaos and tension as the story ramps up. And honestly, I really like the aged look of the mask, and I think it's one of the best looks in the entire franchise. It feels worn and dirty, like it's been sitting somewhere for years, something the 2018 Halloween movie completely ripped off, in my opinion. And even though the third act is essentially a ramped-up version of the 1978 film, there's still some pretty interesting changes that happen. So we have Laurie babysitting, Michael stalking the neighborhood, and eventually breaking into the Doyle house, but the pacing is much more aggressive. Instead of slowly building suspense, the way John Carpenter's film did, Zombie's version ramps everything up much faster. The stalking sections are shorter, the violence is much more brutal, and the movie quickly pushes towards the final confrontation. And the ending itself is also very different from the original film. In the 1978 Halloween, Dr. Loomis shoots Michael off the balcony, and when he looks down, Michael's body is gone. That moment reinforces the idea that Michael Myers isn't just a man, he's the shape, the boogeyman who can't be stopped. Rob Zombie's version takes a different approach. The movie ends with Laurie shooting Michael in the face after a brutal struggle, seemingly killing him right then and there on the lawn. It's a much more final and grounded ending compared to the mysterious disappearance in the original. And interestingly enough, there is actually an alternate ending filmed for the movie as well. In that version, Michael never chases Laurie throughout the house. He actually gets shot outside before entering by the police. Both endings lean to him just being a man and not really the essence of evil. And another interesting point is the sister storyline. In the original Halloween from 1978, Laurie being Michael's sister wasn't actually part of the story at all. That reveal didn't happen until Halloween 2 in 1981, and many fans felt that twist actually weakened the original concept of Michael Myers. In the first film, Michael was terrifying because he killed randomly. He wasn't targeting family members. He was simply the embodiment of evil. Ironically, the sister angle arguably works a little better in Rob Zombie's version. Because this film already humanizes Michael and focuses heavily on his childhood and family life, the idea that he's searching for his sister actually fits more naturally within the story. Instead of completely changing the character like it did in Halloween 2, here it feels more like a continuation of the backstory the movie already established. But this movie definitely is far from perfect. One thing that doesn't really work is Sheri Moon Zombie's performance. I know Rob Zombie likes to cast her in all of his films, but her acting can feel a little distracting at times. Then there's Daeg Farrick as young Michael Myers. While I do think he's committed to the role, personally, I wasn't a huge fan of the portrayal. The movie leans heavily into the troubled kid from a broken home turns killer angle, and the first act can feel extremely over the top. Honestly, I feel like this film would have been better if it opened with that scene of the news reporting after the murders, and then Michael Myers going immediately into the institution. I feel like this film would have worked a lot better because everything before that was just over the top and didn't really work for the film, and that's where a lot of fans really have issues with this movie. So it would have been really interesting to see what would have happened if the film actually started that way. Another character I'm kind of mixed on in this movie is Dr. Loomis. Now, I actually think Malcolm McDowell does a really solid job with the role. He's a great actor and he brings a lot of energy to the character. But the way Loomis is written in Rob Zombie's version feels very different from the original films. In the 1978 Halloween, Dr. Loomis is completely obsessed with stopping Michael Myers because he truly believes Michael is pure evil. His entire purpose in the story is trying to warn people about the danger Michael represents. In Rob Zombie's version, Loomis sometimes comes across as being more concerned with fame and publicity, especially once he writes his book about Michael. That idea becomes even more exaggerated in Halloween 2, where the character almost feels like a celebrity instead of the desperate doctor trying to stop a monster. And for me, that shift changes the character in a pretty big way. The original Loomis felt like the only person who truly understood how dangerous Michael Myers was. But in Zombie's version, that sense of urgency and obsession sometimes takes a backseat to the fame aspect of the character. And the escape scene at Smith's Grove honestly is messy in both versions of the film, the theatrical and the director's cut. But if I had to choose, I'm going with the escape in the theatrical version. Michael's being transferred by prison guards, and he breaks the chains and kills the guards to escape. Even though him breaking the chains is completely over the top, I'd take that any day over the completely out-of-place assault scene in the director's cut. Oh boy, and then there's Rob Zombie's dialogue.
Somebody around here's got to make some money.
I'm all broken up here, bitch. I can't work.
And it's honestly pretty terrible. At this point, I almost wish Zombie would focus on directing and let someone else handle his writing, because I feel like that would make a lot of his movies at least 1 or 2 stars better. The dialogue is so outrageous that it actually makes me laugh every time I watch this movie. Some of the lines are so ridiculous they almost become unintentionally funny. The problem is that because of that, certain scenes become hard to take seriously. Instead of building tension, they sometimes feel more like a dark comedy. Do you prefer Michael Myers having a backstory, or do you think he works better as the mysterious boogeyman from the original film? Because that debate is really at the center of this entire movie. In the original 1978 film, Michael was terrifying because he was pure evil, the boogeyman. Zombie's version tries to explain him by showing his abusive childhood and broken family life. Some people appreciate that approach, but many fans feel it removes the mystery that made the character so scary. When Rob Zombie's Halloween finally hit theaters in 2007, the movie actually performed pretty well financially. The film had a budget of around $15 million and went on to make about $80 million worldwide. It also set a record at the time for the biggest Labor Day weekend opening in box office history. So financially, the movie was definitely a success. But the reception was far more divided. Critics were pretty harsh on the film. On Rotten Tomatoes, it currently sits at around 27%, with many reviewers criticizing the violence, dialogue, and the decision to explain Michael's backstory. Fans were also very split. Some appreciated Zombie's darker interpretation, while others felt the movie misunderstood what made Halloween so effective in the first place. And that brings us to the big question. What exactly went wrong with Rob Zombie's Halloween? Because once you start looking closer, it becomes clear that Rob Zombie and the Halloween franchise were trying to do 2 very different things. Zombie wanted to explore the psychology behind Michael Myers, how someone could become a monster, but the original Halloween was never about explaining Michael. John Carpenter's version worked specifically because Michael had no explanation. He was simply the Shape, a silent, unstoppable force representing pure evil. The mystery was the point. By trying to humanize Michael and explain his behavior, the movie fundamentally changes what makes the character terrifying. Instead of an unknowable boogeyman, Michael becomes someone whose violence can be traced back to his upbringing. And for many fans, that shift changes what makes Halloween scary in the first place. Because sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we never fully understand. And when you explain the boogeyman, he stops being the boogeyman. And for many Halloween fans, that's exactly where Rob Zombie's Halloween went wrong. Alrighty guys, so that's my thoughts and opinions on Rob Zombie's Halloween and why it didn't work. There's honestly a lot of things in this movie that worked really well, but there's so much that absolutely just completely bombed that makes this movie so indecisive. Tyler Mane as Michael Myers, and especially the look of Michael Myers, I think is fantastic. And honestly, Rob Zombie's gritty visual vibe works really well for this Halloween movie. But just the dialogue and explaining Michael Myers' background, honestly, it didn't work. Rob Zombie's movies, in my opinion, would be so much better and more watchable if he stopped writing them and just focused on directing and the cinematography and all that shit. Because his movies look good, his directing is good, his writing is not. So like I said earlier, his movies would bump up a star or 2 more for me if he just didn't have his shitty dialogue in it. And honestly, maybe Rob Zombie's Halloween would be more appreciated if he was allowed to do what he originally wanted to do. So if he did the prequel and actually fleshed out the background of Michael Myers more in a full movie, some people might actually enjoy that. And for the people that don't, there would be the full remake of the 1978 film as a follow-up. So if you didn't like the prequel, you could go and watch the remake that he did. Maybe then it would be more highly regarded as a better Halloween film. In my honest opinion, if they would have started this movie during the aftermath of the massacre, like with the whole news reporter explaining what happened and you just hear it, it would have probably made this movie 10 times better, because like the first 20-30 minutes of this movie is just over the top and obnoxious. And I remember watching the first trailer for this movie, and I think they started it with that news reporting. And when I saw it, I was like, yo, this movie's going to be crazy, because they were describing what happened. It sounded really violent. It sounded extremely gory, and it was cool. And honestly, sometimes less is more. Just hearing it and letting your imagination do the most part is sometimes more effective. And I feel like it would have been that way with this movie, to be completely honest, but we'll never know. And honestly, I was going to give this movie a higher rating than I'm going to, but after breaking it down and watching it again to prepare for this fucking breakdown, I'm going to have to give this movie a whopping 2.5 out of 5 stars. So what do you guys think about this movie? Do you think it's absolutely overhated, or do you think it deserves all the criticism that it gets. Definitely drop a comment down below and let me know. I love chatting it up with you guys. I really appreciate all the support I got on my Friday the 13th video. I love talking to you guys and debating back and forth on what's good and what's not. And also let me know what video you guys like to see next. I really appreciate everybody who's subscribed and been supporting the channel. You guys just helped me hit 500 subscribers, which is super cool and never thought I'd get there. Now I'm trying to get to 1,000. And if you guys like content like this and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you want to see some stuff that I don't post on YouTube, follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I'm going to put those up here. Anyways, until next time, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'm Mike's Movie Room. I'm out of here. Peace.